I think we're good to get started. We have a new host joining us today. Lambda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. My name is Lambda. I use he, him pronouns. I've been in the Invictus server for about 10 months at this point.
Fantastic. Yeah, great. I'm very excited to have you on. My name is Queen. I use she, her pronouns. I've only been here since the beginning of January, and it is now June 14th as recording. So, not quite, well, I guess that's technically 6 months. Is that 5 or 6 months? I'm not a math girly. I don't
That's
know.
6 months.
Yeah,
At
wow.
least I would count that 6 months.
I would say that's 6 months. Yeah. So, guys, we will be looking at the chat actively. So if you would like to chime in with your comments, we love to read them out loud and get some feedback and everything. But we are going to start with a quick summary of the most recent chapter. Lambda, would you like to give that to us?
Sure can. Our chapter this last week opened up with Arthur conceding to the desire to go to the labyrinth. He cited his personal reason being because he didn't want to have to go back on bed rest if he was injured. Yorick makes his comment that he has grown, which is why he's now certain he can find an exit in the labyrinth. As he gathers his things, Arthur decides to pass up on reading Oscar's letter. New York is far away from him now. While John reassures him that those people that have mattered to him are still ahead of them. Yorick implies that Mother Darkness might come for them, and Arthur cuts him off mid-sentence and adds an empty bag to his inventory. Yorick seems certain that the statues in the labyrinth hold the key, which he cites as being the serpent, the fawn, and the headless rider. The boys theorize as they try to navigate the labyrinth, and we learn that Yorick had heard the witch in her room when they had taken the talisman. They loop back around to where the witch stabbed Arthur, and they share a heart-to-heart there. They investigate the wall in that area and find a wooden door with a latch that they can't quite open. Yorick suggests that retrieving a piece of the witch, saying there may be doors further in that may only open for her, while John would prefer to try to wedge it open with the dagger and avoid having to retrieve the body out of the water.
It was such a thrilling chapter to listen to. Even though it was a lot of conversation, it was a lot of very interesting conversation.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
how did you feel when you first listened to it?
I feel like I went through a couple of stages of feelings, especially with that heart to heart in the middle there, which I'm sure I'll be able to get into at some point. We went back and forth, like, and it's like every time John and Arthur start to get into these emotional moments of Arthur talking about the letter he received from Oscar, his moments with John, Yorick cuts in
Yeah.
with that little musical cue that I love that pops up almost every time he starts to talk. Fellow of infinite jest for sure. But I do remember with that heart to heart specifically that they had that moment that Arthur and John shared. I had to pause the chapter, and it took a minute just to cry about that. It was so sweet before finishing listening to that chapter. But it also makes me incredibly excited for the journey that we're going to have trying to get out of this hag's lair.
Yeah, I am right with Vol Control in the chat. First of all, Vol says Lambda as the wiki wizard is showing. For those who are listening later and don't know, Lambda has become the leader of updating the Malevolent wiki, and it is like the number one resource for all things Malevolent. I know that it has been built by many, many hands over the years and will continue to be lovingly cradled. And Lambda is doing a really, really, really great job. And honestly, the load is so heavy. I've been watching on the sidelines and seeing all of the updates getting made, and yeah, our the person who was spearheading it before Lambda, Ren, is in the chat, says couldn't have passed it on to a better person. I think we can all
Well,
agree.
thank you. Um, I am a huge nerd, and so I was very, very excited to do this, and It was funny. I told some of my friends who don't listen to the podcast that, oh, yeah, like I've started working on maintaining the wiki. And the response was just a deadpan. That sounds like something you would do.
We all have our passions, and some of us love spreadsheets. I am a known loud spreadsheet lover myself. Everyone can nerd out about something.
Yeah.
The other comment that Vol Control made was, I almost forgot Arthur decided not to read Oscar's letter again. Yeah, the
Mm.
teasing of Oscar's letter is getting to me, not gonna lie. I didn't really, it's not that I forgot about it, it's that it just really isn't a high priority for me personally. Everyone has their favorite, like, malevolent side characters. I think they're all
Mm.
wonderful. But I've never been like the biggest Oscar stan in the universe, so I can occasionally, oops, forget about him. Haha, wink, wink, joke.
Ha.
And I don't necessarily always remember that we have a letter to look at. And then when Arthur's like, it's not the right time, I'm like, what other time is there? Dude, you just died. What if you died never having read the letter? Oh, wait, you did.
Oh my God, right? I'm apologize if I mispronounce it, but I think it's Gammy in chat said, at what point are they going to try and read Oscar's letter and it's going to end up being completely illegible due to water damage or tearing or something? And I remember during 43, we were talking like, oh, that letter is so full of blood. It's unreadable now.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to finally see what it says. I feel like the longer we think about it and talk about it and acknowledge it, but never actually open it, the more significant the message has to be. There were a lot of jokes and memes going
Absolutely.
around at first about talking about how it's just the hospital bill, or it's some kind of Oscar just kind of being vaguely angry that Arthur ditched him or
Mhm.
something. But I have a feeling now that it's been mentioned several times that it's going to be a pretty heavy letter to read. I think Arthur knows that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I had considered like it might have been something that was obviously be meaningful to Arthur because I'm in a similar camp of I'm not the biggest Oscar stan in the world. So it's like I care about him as much as Arthur does. But I considered it might have been something, kind of lighthearted, or at least something that may have resonated a little bit with Arthur, but the more it keeps coming up and the more he keeps putting it away, the more it's like, oh, that's going to be devastating when he actually
Yeah.
does read it.
Yeah, Ren in the chat says, I wonder if Harlan has written it yet. It's so hard for
Hmm.
me to guess at how far ahead Harlan plans anything, because there are some times where he's like, oh, yeah, I had no idea that was going to happen, so I pretty much just made it up on the fly. And I'm like, how? And then there are other things
Yeah.
where he's like, oh, of course I had that planned, like for several, chapters. And I'm like, I genuinely, I cannot tell what he decides to cook up on the spot and what he pre-plans in a neat little recipe book.
I'm not sure if he has it written. I think he knows what like the content of it is
Yeah.
in terms of like vibe or an overall like thesis, if you will, of what's contained in it.
Well, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure he has like the point of what the letter's going to say. Yami says benevolent. Because I guess benevolent was, as Ren says in the chat as well, just a shower thought and then done later that day, which if you have
True.
not, if you're listening to this and you have not heard benevolent, you should. It's the Christmas special and it is the best. It
It is
is,
quote unquote non-canonical in terms of like the actual Malevolent canon, but it's canon to us.
it's canon in your heart, and that's really where it counts. Graham says Harlan is a madman, which we can all agree on. But also, wasn't
Mhm.
Divisor done in like a week or two? I have not listened to Divisor yet. I hope to. Have you listened to Divisor, Lambda?
I have. I did hear the whole thing a while back. We did a couple of listen throughs on the Discord with Divisor. I believe it was done simultaneously with I believe part 34 of Malevolent was around the time that he was releasing that.
I need to
But
know
yeah, I
if
think
if
it's
he
already
I have a theory. new wild theory on the channel. Chat, let me know what you think. I think that Harlan he must have some kind of contract with some kind of entity. I don't think it's possible for one human person to get all of this done simultaneously. I think Malevolent might be more of an ARG than we think. Maybe he's trying to tell us something about how to get him out of his contract, and it's gone bad, and at fame at what cost? Because the amount of stuff I hear that he does just on a whim, simultaneously, no practice, no big deal, whatever, it's fine.
Throwing it out
Crazy,
there.
crazy, absolutely crazy. With that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts on some of the deeper themes that you picked up on Lambda. I think you had mentioned you had some thoughts about a couple of conversations that were had that have been significant.
I do. I'm not going to go into everything here because we'll be here for, an hour if I end up talking too much about it. But there's been a lot of allegory that people have picked up on throughout the show. I know for me personally, it was something I latched onto very, very early on when I first started listening to the podcast, that a lot of people who are trans or under a trans umbrella on non-binary spectrum have self-identified a lot with John in particular because of his arc throughout the podcast. And that came up a lot in 43. And that was about the time that Harlan also confirmed that he was doing it intentionally in that part, which can I say is so special to have a creator like realizing that these themes are present in the work and then deciding to lean into them intentionally to explore them further, and be able to state that it was on purpose.
So meaningful for him to go out of his way to say that. I think that makes a big statement that many creators may not share.
Exactly. And so, I obviously I could talk for forever about those allegories with John that I have heard. But specific to 43 in this chapter, it was in the conversation. And I just got pinged in the chat. Ren, you mentioned to the public listeners how Harlan talked about it explicitly in a patron channel. He did explicitly talk to us about that allegory and about why, essentially what he was doing, and that, he wasn't shying away from that aspect of his what he was writing. But at least to speak for me from the more personal perspective on this, for some people, when they realize that they don't fit inside of a gender dichotomy that we have in society, for some people it's a really joyful experience. For others, it's not remarkable. It's just, something else I've learned about myself. And for some people, it's a lot less pleasant of an experience. And it has been really interesting to see John reflecting a lot of that. He said it himself in part 19, he's trying to become who he should have been a long time ago. It doesn't come without blood. And he is clawing his way to a new version of himself. And so I highly doubt I'm the only person who has been able to identify with that and feel that. But in particular, in this last chapter, the conversation that Arthur and John had, Arthur stopping to tell John, "I am so proud of you. I didn't tell you how proud I am of you for fighting for who you are by yourself." And for a lot of people who may not have the best support systems, that feeling can really resonate. In hearing someone you admire, someone who's been with you through a lot of that struggle, telling you that I'm so proud of you for fighting to be where you're at, was just so tender to hear them exchange.
Yeah, I think that really resonated with a lot of people. Just to briefly go through the chat, I'm watching for you because I know that it can be hard to talk and to read at the same time. Cass says, Still me crying over only I get to decide who I am. Grammy, I'm hoping it's Grammy, I'm not sure. Trans Allegory John brought me to real actual tears. I still can't believe that we get to have this from someone who clearly cares so much about the story and the character and the people listening. We have Graham saying, I've thought about the trans John allegory so much. I wrote like a mini essay about it. Oh, I'm still so unwell about it. I think there are a lot of people who are still crying about it. I think it was extremely meaningful and the way it was laid out and delivered was so significant.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to catch up. There are so many people there are so many people being wonderful in the chat. There's so much love and Malevolent and it's so beautiful. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I also want to say that as somebody who is cis but I went through my own sort of like experimentation phase, quote unquote. I tested the waters. I tried to see if another gender might fit me. I decided that no, I was good the way I was, and I was fine with that. I feel much closer to gender as a concept. I think it has expanded my perception of gender. uh, I think that it really transformed the way that I think about the whole concept. And I will say what you touched on, Lambda, was cool for me to hear. I never really considered how impactful it could be to hear from somebody who is not necessarily experiencing that journey, but is coming from the other side of it, saying, you know, there is a shoulder, there is a safe space over here. I will make room for you, and I'm proud of you for overcoming those odds and fighting those people that are very much like the hag, want to turn you into something else, something that you're not. So it had gave me a deeper appreciation for it's not I run in a lot of queer spaces, so I can sometimes forget that being a safe space, a safe person is not always a given, and that being vocal about supporting others is really important. And the fact that you can get this from Malevolent, where, you know, we got a talking skull cracking jokes in the middle of heartfelt moments, is so cool to me. I love the power of storytelling like that. I love the hag as a villain, the witch, the hag, whatever you want to call her. I love that she is something that you can tangibly hate, and it feels really good. Feels very deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. Fish mentions I love the hag. She's fucking great and so awful. And that really kind of sums that up. Like,
Yeah.
from a listener perspective, she was such a great character, and a great foil to John to bring in, and challenge him on a level that I don't think he had been challenged on before without Arthur there. So great character. I absolutely hate her though.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to hear her shoot herself in the head.
Yeah. Oh, that was so cool. That was very neat. Vol Control says Arthur making a point to celebrate John's identity and his fight for it is so important, just as important to include as John's decision about discovery, about who he is slash wants to be. Sunny says, and I love you was so deep. They've mentioned it offhandedly throughout the show, but for it to actually be addressed was so meaningful. Roanoke says something that I really like, because I struggle with it. I always have, but it is a very ever present kind of mantra in my head all the time. But this says Malevolent, even when all hope is lost, it's never truly gone. Love and hope are stored in the friendship. I think it's very sweet.
Yeah, that is very sweet.
Okay, so I'm gonna give everyone a quick second to grab their tissues coming off of that. Did you have any closing remarks about that, Lambda, or did you touch on what you wanted to?
I should probably close that out, or else I'll hold everybody hostage. It's like, I don't know if you ever read the drafts, but I'm also multiple pages into to some writing on this exact subject.
Oh, yes. Oh gosh, I have not made the time. I apologize, but I will. I
Oh,
promise.
it's okay.
It's a wonderful thing to see how deep this has all touched everybody. I'm excited to see in the future, not just like the future months and years, but like decades from now, because fandom is forever. There will always be people out there who are collectively fans of media. This is going to leave a legacy, and I can't wait to see how many papers and books are inspired by this. I am very excited for the future to read all of those fan works that have little thank you to Malevolence in them, because I know that definitely I will be one of those people. I'm sure you will be too.
If I have anything to say about it, I definitely will be.
Yes. Briefly, we're gonna exit on this quote, this chat mention here from our lovely peppers. And by exit, I mean exit the topic, not the show. The I love you has me gutted. It feels so easy to come from Arthur's lips, but so meaningful. What an incredible celebration of friendship. And as an ace person, it just means so, so much to me. I think that I think that is a great way to put it. I love how easy it was for Arthur to say that. And it was not just I love you too, it was and you know I love you too, because John does know it. We all know it. They love each other. They are wonderful.
I do just
Now,
want to highlight Ren's joke real quick about exiting the
I
server.
saw that, that's why I laughed.
Goodbye forever.
That's
Everyone's
it.
banned.
That's all everyone needed. Shut the whole thing down, Harlan. That's it.
Yep. Close the
Okay.
door. Better it.
So there is a poll going on right now. I don't know if you knew.
Oh,
Um,
I think this might be the first I've heard of it.
I'm having the time of my life. I am so happy. This week. I am thriving. This is what I needed. All
You
right.
are at your most
I
powerful
am. I am at
when the polls are this close.
peak power when you give me a 49-51. I love close polls. I love close. This is, by the way, this is my platform, and I'm going to talk about this, and you all have to listen.
You have earned the right.
Um, I love close polls. There is 49-51. The poll, chapter 217, use the dagger, is at 49%. Use a piece of the witch is at 51%. That's with 269 votes as of well, it's a little outdated, but it's been that way back and forth. As of noon today, so it was a few hours ago, but yeah, nice. So here's why I love close polls, because I know everyone has a lot of different feelings about this. I love close polls because it keeps me on my feet, it keeps me on my toes. I'm always checking back in to see those numbers go back and forth. You have shenanigans and hijinks, which is hilarious. People posting the funniest things to try and get each other to flip. People posting legitimate paragraphs, essays. You get huge lore dumps. You get people active in the chat that rarely come in chat because they want to help break up the tie, or because they're scared, or because they can't understand and they can't believe, why aren't you voting for my thing? You have people in there like on such a regular basis. Oh, Fish has given me a live update. Fish, you're my favorite right now. Use the dagger is at 48%. Use a piece of the witch is at 52%, and that's 288 votes total. So that's the current update. So I love all it for all those reasons, but most of all is like the lengths people will go to, including me, to get people to vote for what they are voting for. All's fair in polls. There is no ethics in polling. And by that I mean, like, if I say, Abriel, I'll write you whatever fan fiction you want if you vote for Dagger, and Abriel says yes, there's nothing anyone can really do about that. So
Except the part where Marimo has apparently offered
a
Abriel
a counter bribe.
bribe.
A counter bribe has been put forth, so I will be spending my night trying to go back and forth about that, probably. I the craziness of poll chat during a very close vote cannot be understated. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of constant coming in and fretting about no ties. There, there is. I am not saying that out loud, Peppers.
I know I can't.
No, that will not go
say.
on record, but that's a good one. I definitely think that people are at their peak during these close votes because people are so unsure during this. This is a signifier that this is a really hard decision for people to settle on. And whether that's because they keep changing their mind or because they can't really settle on one, as far as like it doesn't really matter and I'll vote for whatever. There's so many different reasons. So I love these close ties, these close votes. No ties ever. We will probably never tie again unless we mean to tie, and even then, I think it's going to be hard to do. Right now, the maximum number of votes that we've logged at time of poll closing has been 328. So right now, we're close to getting all of the votes that we got for last chapter. Now, 328 doesn't mean a lot. It's not like that's how many voices, people are paying to be voices or whatever. That's just the number of people who vote, plain and simple. I'm sure there's way more people who have access to voting that just don't, or didn't get in time, or
Sometimes people forget, or
yeah,
they're like behind.
or they just don't. They drop their pledge, and they, month to month, they aren't always there. So that number's going to fluctuate. But right now it seems to be hovering at about the 320, 330 mark. So yes, very excited about this vote. I am Team Dagger, and famously,
I am
Lambda
not.
is not. So this is great. We have opposing sides that are voiced on the podcast, which is so great. And yes, I will platform the other side, I guess, if I have to.
You don't have to sound so enthusiastic about it.
Oh no, the stream's over. Bye. I guess they only had time for my argument. Whoops.
Oh,
Um,
wow. I just got banned from the Invictus server.
all right. Briefly before Lambda and I start going at it, because we can. Um, Roanoke says, to be honest, I really avoid thrashing in the poll chat to defend my position most of the time because it stresses me out. But man, the 42 votes and 43 votes, it was too important to sit out.
Mm.
Uh, People are reacting to the wild shit I just said. There's Roanoke, there's sleeper cell folks who can be asked to switch to avoid a tie. I love that bit of malevolent lore. Yeah, Lambda, do you remember that we had like a legitimate list of people?
I do. I do remember because I believe that was during part 40, I want to say.
Yeah.
Um, I remember that was the first time I got so stressed out from a poll that I just put my phone down and left it at home and just like went out to lunch with a friend. And like that was the most stressed in my life I have ever been eating a bowl of noodles.
Yeah, it was a really stressful vote for a lot of people. I was thriving. I was at peak and I didn't even know it. It was great. For me, it was the vote of a lifetime. There
Oh,
is
wouldn't have traded it for the world.
oh yeah. I there was a so to explain more fully, ties are the worst thing that can happen ever. Harlan hates them. I don't blame him for hating them. Not only because it makes extra work for him, because he already has two routes planned. And if we tie, that means he has to come up with a secret third, which sucks. And I would personally hate that. So I sympathize. I get it. I'm a Gemini, and Harlan and I have that in common. You could just never understand. No, I'm totally not like that. I think that the other really important reason to me, at least, is through the patron exclusive commentaries, where you do get a lot of insight into what Harlan thinks about the votes and how he views the story and choices matter as a concept and things like that. But he said something that really resonated with me, which was that when you tie, it's kind of like failing to make a decision. It reminds me of that lighthouse tie where Arthur can't make the decision, and he literally says, I don't know what to do. And, as a result, the worst thing that can happen happens, because in life, you don't get to not choose. It's either you choose or life chooses for you.
Exactly.
He gives an example about, if you have to choose between your wife and saving your wife and your child, you have to pick one. There doesn't, you don't get to save both of them. I mean, of course, in the right hypothetical you could, but in this one you can't. So I think that it's really important not to tie. I like the idea of it. I like the moral of it. I like the whole concept. Um, that does mean you have to strike the fear of ties into new voters immediately because people can
Mhm.
think it's funny and fun to tie or interesting or that it symbolizes chaos, which I mean it kind of does, but it's not. It's not a gag. Tying is bad, and we don't do it here. I won't tolerate it, which means I mean, it's not just my poll channel. I talk about it with a lot of ownership because I'm there a lot, but I don't own it. Um, what they're talking about when they talk about the list, when we talk about the list, is that there is actually when we were doing part 40, we got so close to a tie over and over and over again. We were hitting that 50-50 mark, and it was late at night, and like we didn't know what was going to happen because it just kept going back and forth, and people were kind of making the classic mistake of flipping their vote so that on their display of the vote it looks untied, and
Mhm.
then at a few minutes later somebody else would do the same thing, and so it, you can't intentionally flip before we all have all decided as a collective it's time to call in the recruiters and emergency flip, because once you change the numbers like that, it throws everybody off. You have to Everyone kind of has to come to a group consensus that it's time to do that, or else it will just keep bouncing back and forth. You don't ever succeed alone, and that is one of the best things about poll chat, in my opinion. You have to be a group. You have to get the majority.
Yeah.
So there is actually a time where I was calling people. I was saying like, "Hey everyone, if you are up to, flipping, if you're willing to change your vote to avoid a tie, react to this message and I will personally ping you and I will just stay up until the vote like closes, and I will make sure to get in touch with you guys so that we can make sure this changes at the last minute." It was thrilling. I hope it's like that all the I mean, I know that I'm alone in this. I know there's a lot of people who really don't like it when it's that close, but I would give anything to do that again. That was so fun for me. It was like going to a midnight premiere of a show. I was so tired and so ready. Sorry, I got
I
very excited.
No, it's fine. I am so glad that you love that. I feel like you're the Energizer bunny of close polls. You could, if we could do this every week, you would go insane for
Yes.
it. But for me, it's the after the stress of part 40, I was so glad that the first few votes of part 41 were kind of like little softballs, gentle underhand tosses.
Gently, please.
Exactly. Gently, please. Um, and it was just like, oh, thank God, we have a sec to breathe. Um, but yeah, we're full into season 5, and it's good to see that we're starting to get some more difficult I don't want to say more difficult, that's not the right word, but closer polls, we'll say.
Yeah, and I think people are talking about their experiences with other polls. Ren helpfully points out that the wiki has all of the ties. If you want to read about the votes that were tied, you can find all of that stuff on the wiki. The wiki has wonderful resources for lore on votes. It is just the best place to go. There's pretty graphs, there's exact number counts. We have people who are dedicated to screenshotting the poll results every single time a vote goes in, and every closing of a poll, so that we have the right numbers at the right times. They will give you everything you need to know about all of the past votes can be found on the wiki. It's a great resource if you want to learn more about the crazy stuff that happened during that chapter. You will have to listen to other autopsy stuff if you want to learn about the chaos of being behind the scenes for those votes, though. So listen
Yeah.
listen for that, because we'll have some of that stuff on this show.
And I
People are
definitely want to shout out to Liz for being
oh
usually the person who screenshots those polls when they close. Um, has just been really awesome for keeping all of that that record keeping straight.
yeah, Liz is one of the long time record keepers, lore wizards here on the Discord. Very pillar of the community, I would say.
Absolutely.
Fish says, my thing is that as long as my option is winning in a very close poll, I become suspicious of myself and deeply concerned with if it's really correct, despite having advocated for it. And then if the vote flips to the option I didn't pick, a switch flips in my brain and I become the most deranged, diehard, screaming lunatic about the same option I was uncertain about. Vol Control says it's not just the choice, it's the consequences to consider too. There's a lot of debate in poll chat, and there's a lot of things that get hashed out and happen there. People are talking about, Pepper says, I will cry. I leave that to you, Queen. I would cry. She's talking about the stress of the Part 40 vote.
Yeah.
Cass says it's only going to get harder with more voters.
Oh, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
coordinating flip campaigns, because you're going to need to be able to convince a larger group of people in order to move percentages.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people are I think people are comfortable saying that we will probably never tie again, or that we, can't. But I don't think so. I think the power of community
Anything
can do
can
anything,
happen.
and I don't know.
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
I mean,
Yes.
a lot of people say that if we get another contextless Arthur versus John vote, that they would try to intentionally tie. I'm not one
Yeah.
of those people. I I have made my decision now. It's like the dare officer, you say you promise you're not going to do drugs now. It'll be easier to say no later. I have made my selection now, so when
Someone,
Harlan inevitably tries to do that to us again, I've already made my choice.
if Harlan ever decides to do that to us again, he would have to do it very intentionally, because you have to be able to pick more than one choice in the poll, which I don't know if I've never heard if that was intentional or not for him to have that possible. I know that right now you can only pick one choice. So, if you pick the top one, it flips to the top one and you can't select the
Oh,
bottom without
it's
it
with the
toggling.
intentional tie, it is people coordinating, like to figure out, okay, we have this many votes for Arthur. Like, we need an extra couple people to vote for John to even it out. Like, at least that's how I think that went. I wasn't around at that time.
I've seen comments. This is how legendary that vote is. I've seen comments that people say that it was possible to vote for both options. Like, it was not a radio button, but a like a check mark, so that you could vote for multiple. I Yeah, I've seen people say that you could. It was found out that you could do multiple. I don't know if he did that on purpose, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Because if that's the
My
case,
God.
maybe. I mean, maybe, but I have a feeling it wasn't. I have a feeling it was an accident. That it was a switch flipped on accident, and then by the time it was just too late. So
Yami says, I believe you could vote for both. It was because of Patreon's voting at the time.
oh, it was the mechanic.
The website, like Patreon as a vendor, probably had a different way of tracking voting.
Right, yeah. By the way, I just saw Ren had explained to someone in the chat that Dare was a drug. Oh my God. I'm 32. Dare was a program against drugs and alcohol. It was like police came to your school and talked to you about not doing drugs and being bad.
And most often, at least from people I've spoken to, that's how kids learned about what drugs were and how many fun names there were for them
Yeah.
and how fun they sounded.
Yeah.
It was not successful.
No. So this specific vote, which is what I should have been talking about, that's what this is supposed to be about, but I got excited. No, don't be sorry. The thing is that I could do a fan cast all by myself just talking about votes. So that's the problem here. So, Dagger versus Piece of the Witch. So let's start off with the fact that is what the exact wording of the poll is: use the dagger or use a piece of the witch. Sometimes if you don't know, sometimes the wording can be different than what we are initially told. So we have to, the chapter will come out on, let's say, Monday, and then the poll will come out on Thursday. The chapter, we might think the vote is going to be worded a certain way because that's how it's verbally presented. But when the poll drops, it's a little bit different. Not
Yeah.
usually that much, but sometimes it can be some people's make or break. Depending on how the vote is worded, they will change things. I think it was actually a factor in a lot of people's decision for uh, tell the truth or lie. For
Yeah.
what chapter was that, Lambda? Do you remember? Or episode, whatever.
Oh, um, for John, that was a part 43.
Yeah.
That was just last part.
So let's see. Ren says, I owed a vote to Marimo, and Marimo wants me to vote Hag Gristle. So that's where my vote's at. Um, so people are up to bribery here. It's not just me. It's there's a lot people will do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lucy, you and I had our little laugh moving in to talk about the poll because we had a little bit of a friendly scrap in the poll chat earlier this week. I think it was like a solid hour you and I were
Yeah.
bouncing back and forth um, on opposite ends of this poll, which is one thing I always enjoy about debating polls with you is that you always make me think more deeply about why I'm choosing what I'm choosing. Um, Make me work a little bit to try to create a counter argument that explains what I'm thinking. Um, just part of the joy of participating in the poll chat for me.
Yeah, I honestly going back and forth with you in the poll chat with anyone, but with you especially because you are there to pretty consistently to go back and forth with me is that kind of exercise of the mind where you really have to pay attention to you can't just be waiting for your turn to talk. You really have to
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to what the other person is saying and read every word and think critically about not just where they're coming from but what their next argument is going to be. It's very intellectual in a way that I find incredibly satisfying. So that's part of why I really like being in there is getting those conversations going back and forth, even if sometimes they don't end with like anyone changing their mind. That's not really, I wouldn't say poll chat. Poll chat is, fun because sometimes you do change minds. But somebody put it really well the other night where they were saying, poll chat isn't really for changing other people's minds. It's just to kind of make the vote clearer, or to
Exactly.
help you think out like what to vote for or help people make a decision, not necessarily to change minds. So you always go
Yeah.
in there knowing that you could have a conversation for an hour like Lambda and I do, and we never change each other's minds because we're really stubborn. And um, it's still just fun. It's satisfying. It's fun. It's exciting. I think it helps other people decide. Hopefully, people are reading our babbling and going, okay. I know there were people watching us with popcorn. I think it was Merrick's was
It
one
was
of them.
Merrick.
Yeah.
Merrick and Gabriel, I believe, were at the very least spectating on our little man. Fish said debating with me is like trying to play tennis with a flounder. I'm not sure what that means, but I came up with it just now and I thought I should share.
It is. I think that's a very accurate description. Sometimes Fish will start talking in poll chat, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I can see what side Fish is on, and I understand and everything. And then all of a sudden, I blink, and Fish has changed his mind or started doubting himself or talked himself into voting a different way, like all by himself. He just
Yeah.
does that. So I have no idea what was happening in that little fish brain at any given time. Fish is great. We all love Fish. Um,
Yeah, I
so
made that whole Dark Souls fish paragraph dropped.
yes, yeah, Fish is legendary for paragraph dropping. So is Amanda here in the Discord as well.
Mhm.
Um, so uh, Ren says, Queen says it's not necessarily to change minds. Fish says, and I took that personally. Abriel was watching us go back and forth as well, but um, like as concisely as you can, Lambda, why are you voting dagger? Like, what is, if you, the core of your reasoning, the strongest one you have?
Personally,
Oh, I'm
let's
sorry.
see.
Which? I said dagger because I was looking at the word
Oh,
dagger really hard.
Because you were just trying to psychically influence me into
Yes.
changing my vote. I completely missed it because you said the word concisely, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Oh, oops,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, shit. I have to think about this now. Uh, I would honestly, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna pull up some stuff that Liz put out there today
Damn it! Damn it!
because a
That's
lot
such
of
a
what she
ah!
talked about and went through, I feel was just exactly what you asked for, a more concise and more clearly put argument for why I feel the core of the reason the way that I do. Liz is also great with the paragraphs.
Yeah.
But to cut down to the very core of it, Liz was talking about from the hag's perspective, why is the maze here? And why they haven't been able to find an exit. And referring to the fact that we know Yorick saw the hag saw them taking it, had the Spider-Man pointing moment, saw them take the talisman. And so the idea being that she has sealed off the exits, not necessarily to keep people from getting into her lair, but to keep Arthur from getting out. But the hag has this system of potentially, this is, conjecture, master, is the new, you're making a lot of assumptions, Arthur. But the witch may have a secondary set of halls, I suppose, behind this door that she uses as shortcuts to move through her very convoluted and complicated lair much quicker, which is how we theorize she was able to get ahead of Arthur to, she didn't stab him, for him to impale himself on her rapier. And so the core of what I'm thinking is that there are more doors between us and the surface. Doors or other obstacles. That this is not the only, we're not going to be able to open this door and immediately walk outside. And so the core of why I would vote to use a piece of the hag is because she obviously had some sort of magical influence upon her lair. She was able to remove the stairs, for example. And using a piece of her to open doors might save our bacon if there is something more dangerous on the other side of this door between us and the final exit. Or it might be that the final exit is sealed, and we wouldn't necessarily be able to brute force our way through, because I'm almost certain, since this is vote 2 of a part, that there's going to be something creepy or dangerous in that maze otherwise.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Great, great, great,
I
good,
can
good
imagine
job.
you steepling your fingers trying to think of how am I going to try to rip him to shreds?
No, no, I actually think that, I think that everything, here's the thing, it's not that I'm anti-witch. It's that I'm pro dagger. Like,
I
there's nothing wrong with any of that logic. In fact, I agree with a lot of it. There's so many good valid points that are there.
Do I need to pull receipts? I mean, I'm not anti-witch. I can literally search from Queen with the keyword witch, and I can pull the receipts right now. You are anti-witch.
Okay.
I don't blame you for that.
So I'm anti-witch. So, okay, fine. Okay, fine. Okay, look. So the thing is that, okay, first of all, so I have an objection to the idea of, my very first argument for this was, I don't like losing the momentum. I don't like that you walk toward a door, and then you solve a puzzle, and it's very exciting, and wow, like there's a door here and I can't open it. The next step in any kind of story I've ever read or media I've ever experienced is not to turn around and go grab the key. It's to break the door down or like find another way in. Or maybe you can't use that door yet and it unlocks later. But going backtracking to go get a piece of the hag that really we don't have any evidence other than Yorick's word to suggest that we even need it or that it will be in any way necessary to progress. While the logic that Liz has laid out very sweetly for everybody has while that is sound and I respect it, and most people in poll chat do, and I'm honestly still shocked that this is a 49-51 after Liz has already logicked things out for everybody. So that's saying something. While I respect it, I just do not agree with the momentum of turning around and walking backwards. I just want everyone to know briefly, I can see the Discord chat moving in my peripheral vision, and it's taking everything in me not to look at it because Ren is in the chat, and Ren keeps, like, making me laugh in the middle of my sentences. So I have to just, like, not look because all of the jesters are in chat tonight. So what I think is not only does it screw up the momentum for me of the story, but it also just makes me like kind of unsatisfied with the idea of going back to the hag at all. I think her moment is done. I think I don't ever want to see her again, even dead. I think that no good can come of carrying around a piece of this awful thing that we just defeated. It was so satisfying to kill her, and now we have to go back to her and get something from her in order to proceed through her lair. To me, it would be so much more meaningful if we didn't need her or her help and we figured it out with intuition or, you know, the survivalist lifestyle that Arthur has been living for the last 4 months. I think the timeline is at 4 months now, 6 months.
Quotes around lifestyle.
Yeah, survivalist lifestyle. And I don't know. So my vote is so much more based on vibes than logic, I guess, which I don't usually like to vote based on vibes. I think it's not as sound and comfortable for me. I'm not usually a vibes voter. But I don't want to go back to the hag. I don't want to deal with having to cut anything off of her or go into that gross ass water or like fuck with anything that's down there. I just don't think that any progress that we've made so far will feel so far behind us now if I have to go back the way we came, dig through a corpse, and then have, you know, John probably have feelings again, which John's allowed to have some feelings now and then, but like, dude's had a couple chapters or a couple episodes. I'm good. John's got to put it back now. He had his moment. We can do this again in another 2-3 episodes. The boys can have feelings later, but I would really like to see what happens if we just go through the door with the dagger. I also, people have been arguing that they think the dagger might be magical in some way. We don't want to break it, or we don't want to be down a weapon. There's nothing to say that Arthur didn't pick up more weapons. Arthur's been allowed to do things off screen without us for a long, long, long time.
Yeah, he's probably got the hag's rapier.
Yeah,
for one.
I'm sure. And there's probably other things that he has that the hag was storing, like, I mean, provisions, or he could even have other items on him that are magical, carry her essence or her magical whatever, that are going to come off from her flesh that everyone wants to chop off so bad. I mean, I think that there's something to say for the fact that we don't know what Arthur has on him. He hasn't done an inventory check. I would love for him to do one, but it would not be convenient for the narrative. If I were writing the story, I wouldn't do that. So props to you for keeping it secret, Harlan. I think that it would just be so much more satisfying for me to use the dagger, even if it breaks. I would not fuss over Kane's dagger breaking right now. Would not bother me. Magical or not, it wouldn't bother me. Because if Kane gave us a magical dagger and it was capable of being snapped in half by trying to wedge open the door, I would just think that is more of a poor reflection on him than anything else. Um,
Absolutely.
that is
Like,
pretty
did you get this
sad.
from Dollar Tree, Sam?
Yeah,
Did you go
dude.
to Dollar Tree for
Did
your little
he
magic sacrificial dagger?
did he bedazzle a plastic Dollar Tree dagger? Like, is that what he gave Arthur?
Absolutely.
Absolutely not. No. So like frankly, I don't care if the dagger breaks or not in the effort of getting this door open, but I don't think that it's magical, and even if it is, obviously, we don't use items in Malevolent a lot. I don't know if anyone realized that there were so many things that we picked up along the way that we just didn't use, and that's not a criticism, but there are things that get used once and never come back, or they serve their purpose. They're consumables almost, and I would not be surprised. This dagger has gotten more use than a couple of the books that we picked up. I mean,
Mhm.
what's the dagger going to do long term that we can't make up for? Also, we have a gun. I know we only have 6 bullets, but we do have a gun. Just
Yeah, if the dagger breaks and Arthur needs to kill himself again,
he
he
can just
can
shoot
just
himself.
shoot himself
Yeah,
in the head. He doesn't
sure.
need the dagger for that.
And you know what? Like, problems can usually be solved with a gun. John has taught us that. I think if we maybe the secret third option is shooting the door. Nobody has brought up the gun to shoot the door with, so maybe if we
I
break the dagger, maybe if we break the dagger, Arthur will shoot the door.
it you know, have we really considered if the door is the true enemy here?
Yeah, we need to come together
We're
against the door.
yeah. Uh our new approach to this Thace will be so happy. Our new approach to this season should be just to shoot everything on sight.
Yeah, shoot on sight. Done.
Yep,
And you know what?
problem solved.
Six is a big number of things to face, and most things will probably, if Arthur has good aim, which he better, uh, well, if John has good aim, I guess it's John. Arthur can't. Arthur won't gaze shit.
You
Um,
know, 6 bullets would almost double Arthur's kill count of maybe 7.
yeah. I should probably look at the chat and
They've just been laughing with us.
okay, good.
And Ren and poor Yami lamenting about the inventory keeping since Yami tracks Arthur's inventory for the
Oh,
wiki.
yeah.
Um, but
Roanoke says, personally, I just don't like mutilating a corpse. I feel like they already stole from her. Let her be. Pepper
for me,
says, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Lambda. No, no, go ahead.
I was like, I know you and I could talk circles about this vote for a long time. But I was just say, like, to me, it feels less of backtracking. Because from my perspective, we're not fully out of it until we've gotten out of her lair.
Yeah.
Besides, to appeal to to appeal to folks who love violence, we could just do to her what she did to Arthur. It'd be
And
real satisfying.
if you want to go there,
I
I can't with that. I am not the
I
kind of
don't.
person who goes low when they go low. I'm not going lower. She went low.
I'm not either. I'm just like there. There's no what was it you said? There's no ethics in Cold Chat Queen.
I meant
There's
Among
no
Us.
ethics in here.
I would not. Look, Arthur's already done a
Ish,
lot
I'm
of.
not reading that out loud. I
Uh,
read it. I'm not saying that out loud.
I Arthur's done a lot of ethically questionable things. I don't think. I think we're good on the count at this point. I think he's got enough, and we don't need to add to it. How about that? Um,
I honestly can agree with you there. I am just appealing to the lowest denominator that I can.
yeah, that's the other thing about polls. You say shit that you don't know, do not agree with because you know it's gonna get people to vote the way you want them to vote.
Exactly.
That's
I'm leading by
politics,
only
kids.
2%, Queen. I need to widen that margin to feel comfortable.
Harlan doesn't know it, but he's just parodying American democracy here. Um, I mean, he does know it. I'm sure he knows it. This brings out the worst in all of us. I'm kidding. I'm reading comments to try and pick out some that are not memes.
Yeah.
Let's see. Roanoke says, "See, I feel like taking a piece could mean anything, a body part, some skin, whatever, and maybe it was a lock of hair. I wouldn't be as opposed, but we don't know, and I feel like that's too risky." Um, let's see.
Ren brought up a good point. It might not be backtracking. It's like being in an escape room with lots of nooks and crannies where secret keys are hidden. That Yeah, that summarizes kind of how I feel about whether it feels like backtracking. Although, like, given everything that we just went through, I can absolutely see like where you and other people are coming from with not wanting to have anything more to do with her.
Yeah.
But the way I see it is like it is just like going back to those little, hidden spots that, oh, I couldn't reach that a second ago, but now I can. um
I guess it depends on if you're seeing it as like a point and click adventure game or like
mhm.
how you envision the media. I guess if I'm thinking about it, like some of the video games I played that are point and clicks, you definitely have to backtrack a lot if you're being technical about what backtracking means. You have to go back into other rooms multiple times to, complete tasks. I still just feel like they're in a literal maze. It's a dungeon crawler, and I don't know any dungeon crawlers that go backwards. I look, and I'm not even saying that this is the correct the, the correct vote. I'm not saying, oh, dagger is definitely the right way to go.
Yeah.
That this is going to be, this makes, what do I want to say? I don't want it to seem like I'm trying to say voting dagger is going to solve everything, and it's probably going to make more problems. But I just think that I'm not into the idea of turning around at all. I think
Yeah, I
uh
feel like I haven't played many like video games where that's a thing, but like
Lambda's not a gamer. You heard it here.
I I did not say that. I did not say that. I have played a number of RPGs, both video game and tabletop ones, in which backtracking is inevitable. Sometimes, depending on what the puzzle might be. Um,
I think the other point that I don't like is carrying around a piece of something with some kind of dark association magics. I
mhm.
think it will solve a lot of short-term problems. I think it will cause a bigger long-term problem. I do not like uh Arthur carrying that around for very long. I don't like the idea of them being exposed to that kind of magic on purpose with intention when they don't have to be. I do not like you do. Okay, sorry. Fish just said Kane's dagger is the same. You do not have any evidence that that dagger could be a literal normal dagger. I
Yeah, I'm
it
sorry. I'm with Queen on this one. We
there
have
is
no evidence that that dagger is anything other than bejeweled and pretty to look at.
yeah. I also think that it is very different if somebody gives you an artifact versus taking a piece of blood and flesh and bone. Um,
Could be
I'll
hair.
yeah, or hair, I guess, but you know that's not they're gonna fucking do.
Yeah, but I
Um,
feel like I feel like being pedantic.
yeah, I know. And I think the other thing is that like you're carrying around this thing. We also don't know how it's gonna interact with Yorick. We don't know how it's gonna interact with John. We don't know if it's gonna somehow be able to. What if it has a voice like Yorick? Like we literally don't know, and there's so many magical and arcane negatives that come along with carrying around a piece of something that could potentially curse us that I do not like when I know that's already going to be something we have to deal with later. I like we are in the prime time to get a cursed object, and Arthur is so it's like putting a moving target, like a big red circle and neon flashing lights. This boy is built for cursing, and I get it, but like he doesn't need to make the decision to go back and get something that could potentially linger with him. I don't like that. I don't like his willing decision to do that. I also think that if you're trying to compare, Pepper says we could argue that the Vanguard's tooth is the same. I think if you're trying to compare the two, first of all, we are already stuck with with Yorick. We're already there. There's not much we could do about it. But I think that this was a specific case in which we were we were communicated with, and I would say that makes me more worried that if we go to that corpse, we slice a piece off and it starts talking? What if we got a fourth party member out of this that nobody wants? I don't like that.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. For me, one of the things that sticks out to me is that a lot of times in Malevolent, the option that feels riskier but opens more narrative possibilities tends to be a quote unquote better choice, at least for the goals, the assumed goals of the Patreon collective as a whole, which I always operate that our goal is to keep the boys alive and safe, and currently to get the Black Stone. Those seem to be our two big goals right now. So like historically we've had some votes, like I think of the Loose the Caboose vote at the beginning of season 4, that a lot of people are like, why would we disconnect the train cars? But it's pointed out, like, that's the more exciting thing to do. And so a lot of people, yeah, like Ren said, rule of cool.
Let me say right now, I know what Harlan would vote. I know he would use a piece of the witch. I already know that man's favorite movie is Evil Dead, and I know that man is like, oh, rule of cool, 80s action flicks all the time forever. Okay, I get it. However, this is a vote. If he wanted to just do that, he would have just done it. If he thought it was that cool, he would have just written it. He wouldn't have left it to a vote. He would have just said, "This is too cool to happen."
To bring us into it.
Well, it could potentially prevent him from writing the super cool thing he wants to write.
Yeah, and then he can, like, you know, rocks fall on Arthur's head or something like that. It lets him.
So you are saying, so in other words, you're saying that maybe both options could have something extremely interesting behind them, and it's not necessarily the more interesting option.
Definitely didn't ever feel like using the dagger was like, oh, nothing fun could come of that. I don't think what's going to come of that moves us towards our goals of keeping Arthur as safe as we possibly can while getting him out of the hag lair as quickly as we can.
And I think that's the other thing, is that not everybody agrees on those goals. There are people who do not care if Arthur gets out of this alive, and that's not me. I want Arthur safe.
Could not be me.
Could not be me. I don't think I know anybody on a personal level who doesn't care about Arthur's safety. I think that's a very, very small majority of people. Minority of people.
A small majority.
Small majority, yeah. Thanks. Thanks. I this could not be any of us. I think if you're active in polls, generally you want Arthur safe.
Yeah.
But I think that it's interesting. I see the dagger as more of a forward approach than the hag. I see the dagger as more urgency. I think that gives a sense of, we don't have time for that shit right now. I do not want to go back and fillet a hag and deal with all of whatever the fuck that's going to be. And we're right in front of the door. I'm just going to use the dagger and we're going to get through this. So to me, it's a faster way to get through that door. I think it may not be the faster way to get through multiple doors. However, I just feel like there's no sense in... Sorry, hold on. I'm getting pinged. Cass says...
I've already responded.
Oh, got it. I think that there's so much to be said about what you think is going to serve the goal that you're personally having when you vote. I think that's a huge element that people don't always think about. Like, what do you... Lambda and I both want Arthur safe, and we both want Arthur out of those tunnels as quickly as possible. We just have completely different views on what's going to make that happen. And that proves how good these votes are. Like, how Harlan knows where to put these intersections where, like, this is what naturally occurs, and we all have the same goal. I mean, the two of us at least do. Can't necessarily say that for
Mhm.
everybody. Some people are really adamant about voting for what's more narratively interesting no matter the cost. They are willing to put Arthur in danger because it's more narratively
Mhm.
interesting, and that's fine. There are times where I've heard lots of my friends say, yeah, it would be cooler though. Like Fish, for example, who wants nothing more than to get into as many side quests as possible. That is how we started this season. He said outright, I want to see everything and also find a minotaur and all this crazy shit. And I am of the firm, focused mindset that is like, no, I just want to find the Blackstone and I just want to get out of here. And I just want to be I want Charlie back. And
Oh,
I want
you said my sleeper activation phrase.
I just want to get shit done. So, everyone has a different goal and a different thing that they're thinking about. And they think that the way they're voting is the best way to get there. And that is the beauty of poll chat, where you get to explore those ideas and see where other people are coming from and decide whether or not their arguments are going to make you flip or not. We're going to start winding down here. I would like to ask chat for a huge favor. We have 19 people in the stage right now. That's including me and Lambda. I am going to I'm going to send a post in chat. I don't want anyone to talk after it so that I don't lose it on the screen. And I would like you guys to tell me what you're voting for right now. I want to be able to say what these 19 people. Who am I? Who am I among? Am I among friends? I have a feeling I'm not. Also, I will also just say, maybe don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't always need to vote the way that smart people vote. That's all I'm saying. Um, so I'm gonna say, vote now, and I want you to use the axe and the bubble emojis on that post that says vote now that I just put in chat. Um, yeah, I could tell. I could tell that quite a few people were vocal witch supporters in the chat.
Yeah,
Oh,
but overall, there are more axe people in chat currently.
yeah, it says 7 to 11. 7 for Hag and 11 for Dagger. 8
Oh,
for
eight.
Hag. Uh,
And that's the whole 19.
oh. See, now people are fucking with it. I'm gonna say that Dagger's
Yeah.
probably vote. Okay, you guys can talk again.
The
You're free.
majority that's currently present. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I love it. I'm very excited. Good job. You all get a gold star from me, and I love you 11 people specifically, just like slightly more than the 9 Hag people.
Good to know how you think of me.
No, Lambda,
I
I
mean, I think at some point you and I sat down and compared votes and like we've agreed on a vote like out of the like I don't know, 20 votes or whatever since you joined. We've agreed maybe 5 times.
yeah. Yeah, Lambda and I have very rarely agreed on anything, which is totally great. I love that. And we're good friends. Like we talk off server
Absolutely.
and like there's no bad blood and we can have these really heated debates in poll chat and then post a meme in another channel or on another server and talk. And so I really want
Yeah.
to emphasize like we had a lot of fun here today. But we are still a community that loves each other and Paul Chat is always arguing in good faith. That's the whole vibe. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Um yeah, and like I said, like I always have fun like duking it out with you in poll chat. Um because you really do make me like think deeper about what you're doing. It's like I'm like I'd like to do this and you immediately grab me by the face and are like tell me why. And
Why
I'm
I
like,
demand.
"Oh, okay." Um it's all in the fun of it. Like poll chat should never make anybody feel bad what they uh about what they think or what they're wanting to vote. Like part of the beauty of it is hearing all of these different perspectives. Um and how everybody can I think there was a while back that like Dippity and I were kind of like going at it a little bit, and it was like we realized we both have the exact same desire, but just completely differing opinions on what's going to achieve that. Like you had also
Yeah.
mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there are so many times I say I have a little thing I post in poll chat where it says basically like, welcome new voters type thing at the first few times I post a poll update. And in there I say like there's a presentation, there's a slideshow I made. I got really passionate and I made a slideshow about voting. Don't worry about it.
It's very nice.
Thanks. Where it says like, this week Lambda and I are on opposite sides and, we're bickering and, pushing out arguments over and over again. But literally next week that could change. We could be on the same side and we could be allies again. And so you just really, you never, even if like I don't think about it this way because I just, like everybody, I like everybody. I don't, I think you have to keep in mind that even if it's for, the logical thought processes, you never know when you're going to have to debate somebody that you're on the same team with. So just be nice to everybody. Just be cool. Just think of that person being on your side next time and know that someday it will come down to the fact that inevitably Lambda and I are going to be on the same team again someday, I'm sure.
Eventually we'll get there. But yeah, like it's also that like at the end of the day, it's just a podcast.
Yeah,
You
just
know?
a podcast, not a big deal.
My favorite thing about poll chat, we all care enough to engage with each other. But we don't care so much to make it personal.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think we are going to close out. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you for talking with us. Sorry if I scared anyone off. You actually get to hear me out loud heated and not keyboard heated. I can't insert all my emojis to like, reassure everybody I'm not actually mad. I'm not. I promise. I just get really passionate about votes. So, I love you guys. You're all so great. Lambda, you're wrong, but I respect you.
Right back at you, Queen. You are such a wonderful person to chat to, and genuinely, I love having you around in the server, and
Aww.
very, very happy that I get to call you my friend.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
also very wrong, and I think you should just stop while I'm ahead.
Well, we still have some time left. We have a couple days left, so I'm gonna be worried about it. I'm gonna be working real hard in the coal mines. I will see you there, my friend.
Yep, I will do my best to sabotage you as best I can.
Bye, everybody. See you in the coal mines.
Have a good night.